Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is while you're watching this. This is another short, quick ride opinion, this time on a Yamaha Tracer 7. I've got a Tracer 9, had to go in for a service, and because it was quite cold when I was taking it in, I asked if I could have a loan bike overnight to save trying to get my one up there in the ice, and I was lent a Tracer 7. I did actually consider one of these when I got my Tracer 9, but the trouble is at the time they didn't have a centre stand option, but they do now. So I'm leaving Alf England. It's where I bought my Tracer 9 from and where I get it serviced, and we're heading through the town here, and the bike is very nice. It's a low seat height compared to the Tracer 9. I don't think it's been lowered. I haven't got the specs on this one because it's their loan bike, so it might have been lowered. I don't think it has. I think it's standard trim, and it's a nice little easy bike to manoeuvre. It feels a lot lighter than my 9. Haven't looked at the spec sheet, so I don't know the actual difference in weight, but manoeuvring through town is very nice and easy. Also, the clutch and front brake don't need adjusting, so I don't need any extra levers for these, unlike my Tracer 9. Not everybody has hands like shovels, Yamaha. Please take this into account. So the first thing I've noticed is that the indicator is quite a stubby little switch. I'm wearing autumn gloves at the moment, or spring-autumn gloves, but in winter gloves it was quite hard to actually find the indicator knob. I have to use one junction on the M6 on the way home, so I thought I'd try and raise the screen to reduce the buffeting, and it dropped straight back down. Unlike the Tracer 9, you actually have to re-engage the lock on the screen. Not a major issue as long as you remember to do it, and the bike's quite capable of pootling along at motorway speed. I am sat inside the lorry at this point because the lane comes on and goes off one junction later. Having a top-down view of the bike without the seat, we go from the fuel tank at the front via a longitudinally mounted battery, which is slightly unusual, and a space for the toolkit. Obviously it's a loan bike, so there's nothing in there. The lock's in a funny place for the seat. It did take me a minute or two to find it. I was having a look around the bike, but it does lack a bit of under-seat storage. I mean, come on, you've got all this space. No way's the tyre going to contact the underside of the bodywork, and also you can do away with this gawky metal number plate rear light indicator hanger and integrate them all into a bit longer bodywork with some under-seat storage and maybe a slightly longer and slightly wider seat for the pillion. Going back to the pointy end, we do have the usual look what you could have won covers, although these are for a fag lighter type 12 volt outlet this side, and on the right hand side there's a squarer hole, slightly rectangular, which I think is for a couple of USB ports. The screen is bolted onto the adjuster with these long spacers. It looks like the front end, as on my Tracer 9, is very much an afterthought, but spacers on a screen, it doesn't look very good. It looks like it's an aftermarket screen on some sort of aftermarket adjuster, but it isn't. This is the OE kit. Also, looking at where you lift and lower the adjuster, there's a cutout just above the instrument panel. It does look a bit unfinished. Moving across to again, it looks a bit messy. There's what appears to be a handlebar brace, but is actually plastic, and a couple of clamps, and these hold on these little wind deflectors around your fingers, and also the indicators. It doesn't look very tidy around the front end. I think mounting the knuckle guards on the handlebars and having the indicators mounted on the bodywork would have been a better option. The engine is the CP2, featured in all the 700cc Yamaha twins, and it's a nice little engine, to be honest. And the lambda sensor is mounted with a wire coming back from the exhaust rather than out the side like on the Tracer 9. It's got a bit of shielding around it, but as you can see, this one does have the inner wires exposed. If this was mine, I'd be looking at maybe taking the lambda sensor out, putting a bit of heat shrink over it to cover up these wires, because water and electricity don't really mix. Stubby exhaust, as you'd expect on a modern bike. Overall, it's a nice looking bit of kit. The forks are the right way up, and it has these petalled style discs. I'm not really sure what the benefit of these are, but as you can see, there's starting a corrosion on the fixings. The brakes, although they're silver dot, they're not radial, and and I've only got one bike with radial brakes, which is my Tracer 9, and they are very abrupt. I don't know if it's just because I'm used to normal brakes, but these ones do give you a lot more feel in the initial bite of the brake. The switch gear is good. You've got the pull trigger on the front, which I miss on my Tracer 9 to give a flash at the headlight. This is quite an oddity, to be honest. It's a sliding rather than a rocker switch for the high and low beams. I haven't had a bike with that on since my 1990 GPZ305. The selection button for the various trips is also mounted here, but this is a rocker switch. I've already mentioned about the indicators, and Yamaha seem to have gone a bit Honda with moving the horn button. Yeah, the horn button should be underneath the indicators. That's where it's been for years on all bikes. Honda started dicking about with the positions about 2012, I think they moved it, and the knob for the indicators is very small for winter gloves. The other side, you've got your kill switch, which is now combined with the start switch, as with most bikes, and the hazard light switch. You'll also notice that the forks are adjustable. The rear just does have what looks like a preload on it, although again I didn't go too much into depth on the bike. Rear brake, again one of these petal ones, and you can see the beginnings of corrosion around parts of it, the fixings and the ABS sensor disc. It does have a nice little hugger tucked under here, which my Tracer 9 didn't, which does seem to keep the muck off the shot. Again, it's pretty much horizontally mounted. Turning the bike on, it goes through the usual disco light type startup sequence, and then using the mode switch you can go through a couple of trips. You also have the current and overall fuel economy, the air temperature and the coolant temperature. Now, I don't normally ride a lone bike anywhere than from the dealer to my home and back again. It's not my bike, I do replace the fuel I've used, but this one was quite fun. I thoroughly enjoyed riding it, to be honest, so I did take a bit of a longer way home. I went round some twisties, and it's really nice to ride. The mirrors are good, actually. I didn't get anybody to do a walk round, there wasn't time, Carl wasn't free, and it was a lone bike, but they were pretty good as a standard mirror, so might still need extensions, I don't know. I'll have to apologise for the chest mounted camera footage here, but I'm going around some twisty bends on a pretty well surfaced road these days on the way back to mine, and it was a delight. As I've already said, it feels a lot lighter than the Tracer 9. The centre of gravity is certainly lower, which is helped by a smaller fuel tank. It's quite easy to stand up on to see over bridges or give you backside a rest on longer rides, and it's nice and stable because of the big wide bars. And on all the back roads down near to where I live, I had a hoot riding this thing. I put in about an extra 20-25 miles on it than I normally would, because I went out going, yeah, let's get it round some twisties, this is so much fun. There's a lot of engine braking, the acceleration is great, it certainly picks up quick, which is down to the engine, which is really nice. There aren't any noticeable vibes. I didn't rev the bike to the top of the rev range, it's not mine, and I don't rev mine like that, so in the rev range I'd use, it was certainly vibe free. So after an overnight stay in my garage, it's time to take it back and pick up my Tracer 9 after the 18,000 mile service and a new tyre. I'm riding back up in the morning and it's a bit chilly, it's about 6°C, so my fingertips are getting a bit cold. I'm having a feel here for where the airflow is coming, and although you don't feel a lot of air pressure on your fingers because of the handguards, it is actually coming in underneath and chilling the fingertips, which isn't ideal in the UK. Again, like I said earlier, I'd rather not see the gawky faux handlebar brace, which is all plastic, and have some decent handguards mounted on the actual handlebars and the indicators mounted somewhere else. So I'm stopping for a quick sausage sandwich and a cup of coffee at the Willoughby Cafe, about halfway between where I live and Alf England's, and it's not the only time I'm going to accidentally bip the horn trying to find the indicators. And here we are, nearly Alf England's, to drop the Tracer 7 back. It's a good bike. To be honest, I didn't test ride one of these when I got my Tracer 9 because there wasn't a centre stand available, but there is now. Yeah, it's enjoyable. It's a nice bike to ride. The engine's certainly lovely. It's got lots of oomph, lots of engine braking as well. Not quite as much as the 180 parallel twin. I think these are 270s, sort of cross-plane, which is the CP designation. The controls are certainly a lot easier to work without having to stretch my hands off the handlebars like I do on my Tracer 9, and if these were available with a centre stand, when I got my Tracer 9, I would have got one of these. It's a really nice little bike. It's a low enough seat height for me at 29-inch inside leg. It'll hustle around the corners, it'll sit at motorway speeds, and with luggage and everything else, it's certainly going to make a capable tourer. Screen needs a look at. It was quite noisy, but I wasn't getting buffeted, so maybe I'd put either a larger or smaller screen on it for myself, but it's up to the rider. And yeah, if you're in the market for something that's not stupidly fast, stupidly powerful, stupidly heavy with stupid amounts of technology on it, this will be worth a look. Maybe there's a few issues with the finishes, but this is a loan bike, it's not somebody's own bike, so it might not have been looked after quite so well by the people that have used it. So have a look at one if you're in for something this style, size and power. You might need to make a few little changes on it, but yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Anyway, that's it from me. It's not a full review, just a quick ride, so tatty bye for now.